All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to our second mentor view with athlete career coach Taj Deshawn. Welcome to the call, Taj, and thanks again for being with us, man.
Hey, Nick, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, before we dive into our topic today, I figured, you might want to share a little bit more about your background and what you do.
Sure, I'm a former football player at Stony Brook University. I'm not going to sit here and bore anybody with my stats or anything like that. Nobody cares. I didn't have a great career at Stony Brook, so I knew that I wasn't going to play at the next level. And yet still, like most former athletes, I really struggled to figure out what I was going to do next. Eventually ended up having a great career in recruiting because I was enjoying the fact that I was working with people. And eventually a time came when I decided that I was going to branch off and kind of use some of the skills I was getting from recruiting just to work with former athletes. And I've been doing that for the past 3 years now. I help former athletes transition into the next stages of their lives. I have a really holistic approach where it's not just, I'm going to help you find a job or start a business. We're really helping them adapt to this next stage of their life and getting clear on what it is they want to do. Also connecting them with other former athletes, just like Athlete Network, helping them get connected and develop communities for themselves with other people who are in their chosen field so they can have those people as guides and mentors as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Taj. And needless to say, that's a big part of why we wanted to talk to you today and have you speak to our student athletes that are really taking some of their first steps in the business world. So it can be a little stressful, can be a little scary, but with some helpful sage wisdom from you, we're hoping that we can get them started off on the right foot. But our topic in particular is going to be focused a little bit more on really following your passion versus being practical. I know you have a lot of great info for us there. It's catered around having that right mindset though. And really, we just want these athletes to make a good, first career decision. So you and I talked about this a little bit last week, but, as athletes are thinking about their first step, what should they really be mulling over?
Great question, Nick. As far as being practical or following your passion, I think that it's important. The first step in that is really crafting a long-term vision, right? Because I think so many people are under the impression that you can't do something that you love and enjoy what you do on a day-to-day basis. I disagree with that. I think it takes a lot of work to get there. And it also, as you mentioned, it takes being practical. So as I said, the first step with that is really crafting a long-term vision and think about what is it that you're actually working for long-term, and then reverse engineering that. I think too many former athletes, including myself and a lot of people I'm working with, we get so desperate to just attach our identities to something. Any job we can find, the first opportunity we can get just so we can say, hey, I made it, I'm adulting now, I have a job. That's all great. But, if you can find a long-term vision and really attach yourself to that, something that's meaningful to you, that's a game changer in so many different ways.
I love it. So to confirm, you're saying that at a certain point, something is better than nothing?
Absolutely, but not just any something. I think doing what you have to do is really important, meaning, of course, we all have to make ends meet. We all have bills to pay. But I'm a big believer in whatever job that you do take, try to be as intentional as possible about that, as I mentioned. And also, if you're in a situation, your head up and just kind of looking around, looking at your managers, looking at the people who are, 5, 10, 15 years ahead of you in that industry or in that career and saying, do I want to be in their shoes long term? Look for what you like, look for what you dislike, and really be intentional about where you're going. Something I always say, Nick, is that fuzzy targets don't get hit, right? So if you don't really know what you're aiming for, you're just kind of blowing in the wind rather than someone who has an intentional path carved out for themselves. They're directed and they know where they're going, even if they're doing something in the meantime that's not necessarily related to that. So if you got to go bag groceries because companies aren't hiring right now, then do that, but stay focused on your long-term vision.
I love it. Well, yeah, that's perfect timing because, we know that things don't go as planned. If we needed another reminder here in 2020, here it is. But, it's good to know that, it is okay if you have to, make that decision and just get started. But obviously, I think to your point, having that long-term goal is crucial because otherwise you're not going to hit your target. You're going to be fuzzy and you're not going to know where you're going to end up. But obviously, there's a bit of a fine line to toe there, right? So, how would you recommend, really kind of towing that line? Any type of wisdom or advice you can share there?
Yeah, I think I'll just use myself as an example. As I mentioned, through recruiting, I realized that I had a passion for working with people, right? So that's something important to pay attention to. And a lot of people will say, I love working with people, but you have to get focused on the how, right? So I love working with people, but the how was I love helping them find clarity around what they want to do. And that's through recruiting, helping them find a rewarding career, helping them get clear on their goals. So being able to take that and run with it, that was kind of my guiding force. So the things that you enjoy doing, the things that are having an impact on people, those are the things that you want to pay attention to. Any career, any successful business is centered around, I enjoy doing this and it has an impact on people, and that's what people are willing to pay for, whether that's a business or you're in a career. So what I did was, knowing that I wasn't going to be able to build my own lane for myself and also work in the corporate structure necessarily, I took a job where I was installing glass for $16 an hour. You know, I could have gone and got a job, but I knew that that would work for me. I'm a physical guy. I can work hard all day. I can install this glass and come home and still have the energy to work with former athletes, you know, do calls, make content, do all that type of stuff. So, yeah, to answer your question, I think that's how you toe the line. You kind of walk that fine line between, you know, Gary Vee calls it clouds and dirt. Anybody who listens to Gary Vee's content, he refers to it as clouds and dirt. Your head is up in the clouds, dreaming about all that your life can be and everything that you want to do, but you're in the dirt, getting your hands dirty, putting that work in, and the two really feed off of each other. So that's the best way I can answer your question. Clouds and dirt, use that concept, apply it to your life, and watch some magic happen.
Yeah, I like that. Great Gary Vee shout out there. Kudos to you there. So obviously athletes, we're competitors. We want to keep competing. That's what we're all about. It's what you're all about. But a lot of that, you know, recognizable infrastructure, the coaches, the practicing, all of that disappears. I feel like it's still there, but in essence, you know, what can we do to keep improving ourselves daily?
I look at it as at a certain point, because as you said, which is huge, when you do lose that network, you do lose the coaches, you do lose that support system, you can do one of two things. I recommend doing both. The first thing, kind of a short-term fix, is become your own coach, your own guide, your own mentor, your own support system. Meaning, instead of, you know, watching Netflix for hours a day, instead of going out and drinking at the bar, you know, spend some time investing in your own education, figure out what you're interested in. Really, you know, I recommend journaling, writing out what you're working towards long term, doing some reading, listening to podcasts, listening to anything, making sure you're very conscious of what you're absorbing. And the second thing is, now that your network has fallen away, so to speak, now that you're removed from the bubble of athletics, being intentional about crafting a new network, something that I really refer to as drafting mentors. And we're so fortunate, Nick, to live in this time, as you know, where you can get virtual mentorship from anyone in the world, anyone who inspires you, anyone who you say, man, I really like XYZ about this person. I really like what they're doing in their career. I want to follow their footsteps. So the best way to do that, of course, reach out, take a shot. Why not? You never know who might be willing to respond to you and take them under your wing. You know, like if you reach out to The Rock or somebody like that, is The Rock going to respond to you? Probably not. But there's a lot of people in your industry and in your field who will be willing to have conversations with you when they see a young, hungry, up-and-coming former athlete. They'd be willing to have a conversation with you and help you out. And if you can't get in touch with them directly, absorb their content, read their books, listen to their podcasts, and learn from them that way. That's really how I look at it, virtual mentors. And if you think about it, Nick, you and I were talking about this last week. The people who succeed in life, some of the best people, even the professionals, you know, Michael Jordan, and Phil Jackson, right? He had someone guiding him. Even Beyonce has like a singing and dancing coach. So, you know, Nick Saban, I was watching this video on Instagram last week. Nick Saban was saying that average players, they avoid coaching, meaning they don't want to be bothered. They just want to come to practice every day and do their thing. You know, good players, they don't mind being coached. They don't mind the positive feedback, but the best players in the world, they seek out coaching. They want to know after every play, hey, coach, how did I do? How was that? What can I improve on that one? And I think that taking that athletic mindset and seeking out coaching, taking that from the sports arena to your everyday life and what you're going to do in the next chapters of your life after you're done playing your sport, you want to absorb that superstar player mindset where it's, I want to seek out people who can help me. I want to know how I'm doing. I want feedback. I want to absorb information from as many people as possible to help me get where I want to go. So
I love it. Yeah. The drafting mentors in particular, I love it because it's got a sports tie, right? So you are picking the people you want to follow. And, you know, to some degree, you know, you're a product of your environment. I mean, at school and at your home, you're always the people you surround yourself with, right? Content is the same. And I love that not only do you provide a lot of that content, right, that we're putting on today, but more importantly, you know, it's just a matter of continuing to make yourself a little bit better. And you never know what audiobook might give you that aha moment or make you recognize or realize you've got some strengths that have been, you know, untapped for some time. And maybe you want to go exercise those. And Also like the fact that you're using a Nick Saban metaphor, even though, we'll leave the sports stuff aside with Alabama. Hope he gets well. But, the best people should be seeking out those mentors and really trying to make themselves better. So for you in particular, if I'm an athlete and I wanted you to mentor me, and not necessarily career coach, but I'm trying to incentivize you to get back with me, what are some of those, points that I should say? Obviously, probably do some research, but what else would you, recommend?
You're saying if someone's reaching out to a mentor or a guide directly? Man, honestly, and I've done a lot of this over the years too. I've reached out to a lot of people who have helped me up, right? So I think the best thing you can say is just be honest with them. A lot of people will reach out to a guide or a mentor and be like, hey, can you help me? Like, come on now, you got to do a little bit of research on their background. One thing that I would do is I would listen to a podcast or, hear someone that really inspired me. And when I reached out to them, I would make sure that I mentioned that. Like, hey, I heard you on XYZ podcast or on this show. I thought your message was awesome. I'm a former athlete. I'm looking to do something similar. Would you mind taking 10, 15 minutes just for us to have a brief conversation? Or, if someone's super busy, just ask them, do you have any advice for me? Like, especially if this person is a former athlete, they're going to understand what you're going through in that transition phase. And they're going to be able to have compassion for you and offer you advice to get through that. And you never know, man, like they might be willing to even help pull you up. So if you can't get them on a phone call, there's nothing wrong with just asking for advice through Messenger. But I'd say go for the phone call, because then you can build that relationship and have a reason to stay in touch with that person.
Excellent. Well put. And I definitely recommend, to your point, going the less abrasive route. And maybe if you're not getting feedback, just ask for some advice, right? Because obviously they're busy. And if you caught wind of them, other people probably did too. So be mindful of that. But absolutely seek them out, seek people like Taj out. So big question here. If you could go back and tell your newly graduated self, so very similar to the folks that'll be listening to this, what would you tell yourself before you launched and went into the real world?
That's a great question, Nick. I would tell myself to not be as concerned about money. I was definitely, I call it being in survival mode. I was so desperate just to be like, to prove that I was worthy again. I'm not an athlete, so let me try to get rich, or let me try to get, some fancy job title or something, and I think that I would have been more intentional about carving out my lane, because I probably would have reached this conclusion a lot sooner. If I was going through a time where I was like, man, I'm really struggling right now, I wonder how many other people like me are struggling, I probably would have gotten here 2, 3, 4, 5 years sooner versus trying to job hop and chase money and do all that type of stuff. So really be intentional. Trust me when I say that the money will come as a result of sticking to your path and doing things that are true to you. When you're at if you think about it, when you're waking up in the morning and you're doing something that is inspiring to you and it's having an impact on people, and you're excited, you don't even need an alarm clock. You're just excited to get out of bed and pursue that thing. If you're sticking with that and you stick with that long enough, money is coming your way, no question. So that's the advice I would give to myself is really try to find that thing, identify it, stick with it, cultivate it, be patient, and understand that that's the law of the universe. You'll be compensated for the value that you give. So.
Yeah, well, great advice, and something that I definitely wish I heard a little bit recent. No, not recently, but as far as like my graduation goes, I would have loved to know about this and just, to second check myself and say, hey, is this really what you want to do? It sounds great. And, you're being competitive with your peers, and you're all comparing and making sure that, you are this amazing asset out there, right? To your point, but it's like, you can also just build a career. It doesn't have to happen overnight. And I think that the best way I've heard it poised, and I think that you've said this as well, but it's a journey. It's not a destination. You're never going to just get there, and you're never going to be done. So why don't you just take those steps that you enjoy, just build on it over time, and you'll see probably some great results.
Yeah, well said, Nick. Yeah, I love it, man. I think that's key. Just staying focused on that path. That's the only way. People get so impatient and want to attach their identities to things, and there's nothing but time. It feels like when you graduate from college, you feel like, oh, you're supposed to have it figured out already. Not the case. Like you said, Nick, you're just beginning your journey at that point. So if you can view it that way, it lets you know that you have time to actually figure it out. Not that you should be sitting around. Like you still got to get up every day and execute. But having that long-term vision is key, man. So I'm really glad you shared that.
Yeah, I love it. Well, how can we hear more from you, Taj? Rumor has that there's a book you're working on.
Yes, sir. The new book, Thrive After Sports, is available for pre-order at ThriveAfterSportsbook.com. I also have a podcast called Thrive After Sports, which is available on all podcast platforms. My website is tajdashaun.com, TAJDASHAUN.com. All the social media handles are at the top of the website. I'm super active on LinkedIn. I'm Taj Deshaun across all platforms on social media. As Nick knows, I'm always posting something on LinkedIn. So if you're a former athlete, you got to get on LinkedIn. Otherwise, you're missing out on a ton of opportunities. I'm telling you, me being on this call today is the result of me being active on LinkedIn. So there we go.
Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely connect with Taj. If you guys have questions, if you're looking for guidance, a great person to just follow. And if you're looking for a mentor, something tells me he's going to have a few requests after this. So be persuaded. Great asset, a great guy to have in your back pocket, and would love to help you out. He's actually offered up a couple career coaching sessions, guys. So definitely make sure that you're attending our career forum on the 27th. So that'll be at 1 p.m. Central. You can also watch the replay. We'll be putting that in the networks for everybody. But as long as you're doing that and engaging with career partners, there's a shot you'll get a career coaching session with either Taj or with Dominic. So make sure you engage. But Taj's information will also be found through our partner page. So you guys can check it out there under Thrive for Sports. But Taj, I mean, can't thank you enough for being on here today, man. Really appreciate it. And, thanks again.
Hey, Nick, I appreciate the invitation. It's been a pleasure coming on here and sharing. And thank you, man. Thank you for all the work that you do. And, it's been great. Ever since you and I connected, nothing but great things have come from it. I know we're going to be able to help a lot of people. So thank you again.
All right. Well, best of luck to the athletes, guys. Go get them.